by Bernard Weber. This is the copy I had from my childhood. As you can see, it's well read, well loved, and quite worn. So let's get started. This is the house on East 88th Street. Mr. and Mrs. Prim and their son Joshua live in the house on East 88th Street. So does Lyle. Listen. Swish, swash, splash, swish. That's Lyle. Lyle, the crocodile. Lyle was very happy living with the Prim family. He was especially happy when he was being useful, like helping Joshua brush up on his schoolwork. But if Lyle was happy, he was making someone else unhappy, perfectly miserable. In fact, that someone was Loretta, Mr. Grump's cat. Mr. Grumps lived just 2 houses away from the Prims. Whenever his cat caught even the slightest glimpse of Lyle, she would fling herself into a nervous fit. Lyle wanted desperately to win Loretta over. He tried flashing his sweetest, most toothsome smile at her to show how really friendly he was, but this only frightened the distrustful animal even more. In the end, Mr. Grumps, who was even more excitable than his cat, would burst from the house, shaking an angry fist at Lyle. "Something will have to be done about that crocodile," he shouted as Lyle fled to the safety of his own house. To take his mind off his troubles with Loretta and Mr. Grumps, Lyle filled his days playing with Joshua and his friends. He loved being it. He could skip double dutch 100 times without missing. It came as no particular surprise that Lyle could high jump, but Loretta, who was just let out for an airing, was surprised. She was terribly surprised. Loretta was so surprised and so shaken, she fled to the nearest tree, and no amount of coaxing would bring her down. Not until Mr. Grumps arrived to rescue and comfort her would she consider coming down. "Something will have to be done about that crocodile," stormed Mr. Grumps. Now Mr. Grumps was really furious. Now he knew he would be snappy, irritable, and impossible to live with when he Mrs. Prim and Lyle went shopping in a big department store. Unfortunately for everyone, it turned out to be the very same store in which Mr. Grumps held an important position. And unfortunately, they were to hear from Mr. Grumps all too soon, for it was his voice that suddenly broke in over the loudspeaker to announce a sale in the pajama department. Immediately, it was as if everyone in the store was in desperate need for pajamas. Separated from Mrs. Prim, Lyle was swept along with the crowd. As they neared the pajama department, Lyle thought he heard a familiar voice. "Lyle, Lyle," the voice called out. Lyle recognized the voice all right. And the face as well. The voice and the face belonged to Hector P. Valentini, star of stage and screen. But what was Signor Valentini up to now? Well, for the moment it seemed he was very busy selling pajamas. Lyle remembered unhappily his days of traveling and performing with Signor Valentini, but in spite of everything, the two were delighted to see each other once more. In another part of the store, Mrs. Prim searched frantically for Lyle. "Excuse me," she said to the lady at the information booth. "Have you seen a crocodile going past?" He was wearing a red scarf. "No," answered the lady. "I have no information about a crocodile wearing a red scarf." "Excuse me," said Mrs. Prim to the sporting goods salesman. "Have you by chance come across a crocodile? His name is Lyle." "Sorry, madam," answered the salesman. "I have not come across any crocodiles named Lyle today." Mrs. Prim grew more and more upset. "Excuse me," she said to a man wearing a white carnation. "I have lost my crocodile, and I don't know what to do." Whatever the man answered, Mrs. Prim never heard it, for his voice was lost in a chorus of other voices shouting, "More, more." Those voices belonged to the huge crowd of shoppers surrounding Hector P. Valentini and Lyle, because they had an audience, and because Signor Valentini could not resist showing off. He had persuaded Lyle to join him in a free performance of their old stage act. "More, more," the surprised but delighted shoppers called out, forgetting all about wanting or even needing pajamas. Mrs. Prim caught up with them just in time to hear still another voice, charged with fury, shout, "What is going on here?" This was Mr. Grumps, and when Mr. Grumps saw what was really going on, his face turned red, blue, and purple with rage. "Madam," he gasped, "we do not permit crocodiles in this store, you know. Remove him at once." "And you, sir," he said, pointing a dagger-like finger at Signor Valentini, "you, sir, are dismissed. Something will have to be done about that crocodile." Those morning words of Mr. Grumps still rang in their ears as they said goodbye to Signor Valentini outside the store. I just realized I've been saying his name wrong the whole time. Signor Valenti. That's okay. Mr. Grumps at least made good his threat to do something about that crocodile. The next day he appeared at the Prim store with papers authorizing Lyle to be committed to the city zoo. "The zoo!" Mrs. Prim exclaimed miserably. "Whatever would Lyle be doing in the zoo? He'll be doing whatever is normal crocodiles are supposed to be doing," snapped Mr. Grumps. It wasn't being at all nice about it. The Prims examined news. The new keeper turned out to be none other than Hector